Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to call to order this June 4th, 2025 James City County Planning Commission meeting. Ms. Istenis, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Haskins?
Present.
Dr. Haskins is an at-large member. Dr. Allman?
Present.
Dr. Allman represents the Roberts District and is vice chair of the commission. Mr. May?
Here.
Mr. May represents the Powhatan District. Mr. Everson?
Here.
Mr. Everson represents the Stonehouse District. Mr. Rogers?
Here.
Mr. Rogers represents the Berkeley District. Mr. Polster?
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District. And Mr. Haldeman?
Here.
Mr. Haldeman is an at-large member and will be presiding over this meeting as the chair of the commission. I'm Susan Istenis, Director of Planning for the county. My pleasure to serve as the secretary to the commission. Sitting to my left is Mr. Andrew Dean, who's the Assistant County Attorney. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We now have time for public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the commission on topics not subject to a public hearing. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. We don't have any speaker cards. Would anybody like to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll turn to reports of the commission. Development Review Committee, Mr. Polster.
The Development Review Committee met at 4 p.m. on the 21st of May, 2025. The committee's members present were Jack Haldeman, Steve Rogers, Scott May, and Frank Polster. Staff members present were Morgan Riesinger, Planner 2, Hannah Honeycutt, Administrative Coordinator, Fire Chief Ryan Ash, Fire Marshal Joe Davis, Solera Woods applicants Tim Trent and Jay Epstein, and 8 Bush Springs residents were in attendance. Conceptual Plan 25-0002, Solera Woods Water and Sewer Subdivision Exception Request. The applicant seeks an exception to permit 38 residential lots to utilize individual wells and septic systems rather than extending public water and sewer lines as is typically required for a major subdivision. The applicant had a similar request that was withdrawn after being heard by the Planning Commission in 2022, which is why there were members of the Bush Springs Road community in attendance. The properties involved are zoned R1, limited residential, and are both inside and outside of the county's primary service area. Inclusion of any property inside of the PSA triggers Section 19-59A and Section 19-61 of the subdivision ordinance, which requires all major subdivisions inside the PSA to connect to public water and sewer systems respectfully. The proposed subdivision of the property into 38 single-family residential lots exceeds 5 lots. It would involve extending the Bush Springs Road right-of-way through parcels within the public service area, requiring the subdivision to connect to public water and sewer systems. The developer would like to construct the subdivision without connecting to public water and sewer. The developer has proposed that each home is built with an in-home fire sprinkler system. The water supply for the sprinkler system would come from large water holding tanks fed by a well located outside of each house. The fire department stated its preference would be for the subdivision to connect to the public water system. This would enable fire hydrants to be strategically located throughout the subdivision per current standards. Staff in the fire department find that a requirement to maintain and ensure the continual operation of in-home fire sprinkler systems for single-family detached dwellings by the HOA is non-viable. Whether those requirements fall on the HOA or even on individual homeowners, over the life of the single-family home, staff find such a requirement to be something that county staff could not practically or reasonably enforce. The applicant acknowledged these concerns and requested a conversation about these concerns as opposed to the DRC decision and their exception requests. There was a lengthy discussion about the details of the project and DRC members' concerns about the enforceability and reliability of an in-home sprinkler system, especially over time and during property transfers, as well as similar cases where maintenance and enforcement of similar systems were problematic. The applicant acknowledged these concerns and requested a deferral to work with staff in the community to address outstanding issues, particularly fire suppression and system maintenance. Bush Spring residents in attendance were offered an opportunity to address the DRC. Mr. James Praxton at 257 Bush Springs spoke. His concerns were about the lack of communication on the part of the applicant with the residents of Bush Spring Road, the increased traffic from 38 new homes on a narrow, unmaintained road that is just short of a mile in length, and that when there is a school bus on Bush Springs Road, there is no roadway room to pass. His overall concern was that the proposed development is not considering the impact of the people who live on the road. The DRC agreed to defer action until the August 2025 DRC meeting with a vote of 4-0, allowing more time for collaboration with the staff, communication with the Bush Springs community, and refinement of the proposal. That's my report. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Development review. Policy Committee didn't meet, Mr. Everson?
No.
Great, thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are determined to be non-controversial. However, a planning commissioner may pull any item for discussion. There is one item for consideration, that being the minutes of the May 7th regular meeting. Would anybody like to pull that? Or if not, may I please have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have one public hearing on the agenda tonight. ORD, or that is to say ordinance 25-0001, amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding sexually oriented businesses. Ms. Parrish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. At its meeting on February 25th, 2025, the Board of Supervisors adopted an initiating resolution to consider possible amendments to the James City County zoning ordinance to define sexually oriented businesses and to require such use to obtain a special use permit. Currently, these uses are not identified or defined in the ordinance. However, the sale of adult-themed books, videos, and other novelties could be classified under the existing retail use, and other establishments could argue that this use could be permitted as an indoor center of amusement or an indoor theater. The Code of Virginia allows localities to regulate, restrict, permit, and prohibit the use of land, building, structure, and other premises. The United States Supreme Court recognizes that adult entertainment has some First Amendment protection as expressive conduct. Localities can generally regulate these type of businesses under their zoning laws, as long as the regulations serve a substantial government interest. However, an outright prohibition of the sexually oriented businesses would likely fail a legal challenge. A neighboring locality recently adopted amendments to its zoning ordinance to address this use. During their process, they collected an inventory of adult-themed businesses in the Tidewater area. These uses included adult entertainment venues, lingerie, and adult novelty stores, adult bookstores, and adult video stores. And that list was provided to you in your packet. Staff presented these materials to the Policy Committee at its April 24th, 2025 meeting. After discussion, the review of the Commercial District's Statement of Intent, the policy voted unanimously to recommend the following to the Planning Commission. The first was to propose a definition revision to the retail store that would exclude sexually oriented businesses. The second was to define what a sexually oriented business is in the ordinance, and it had several terms that go along with this definition to be clear. So I'll just kind of flip through the adult bookstore, adult media, adult novelty items, adult entertainment, specific areas, and specific activities. Furthermore, the proposed districts that were recommended to have this use be listed and require a special use permit include Division 9, Limited Business LB, Division 10, General Business B1, and Division 11, Limited Business / Industrial District M1. By requiring a special use permit, the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors will have the opportunity to consider if the proposal would adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of persons residing or working on the premises or in the neighborhood, or impair the character of the district or adjacent districts. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the draft ordinance to the Board of Supervisors. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of Ms. Parrish? Mr. Polster.
Could you bring up the map of the areas so that we could see where the general business, the L1 and the M1 is, please? If you could point them out.
This is the overall zoning. It's kind of hard to see those districts, so I kind of broke it out a little bit. Again, still a little bit hard to see. Here's up in the northern part of the county. So all these red areas would be business, the light pink would be LB, and then the purplish color is limited industrial. So that's up there all the way. This is
Brooker.
Croker Road, yep, all the way down. Here's Lightfoot Marketplace. Going down, whoops. So some more around these areas up at Prime Outlets, or I guess Premium Outlets. Areas further down here is Five Forks area, Williamsburg Crossing area, Jamestown Road area, and further down into Grove. This is up there off of Merrimack Trail and Pocahontas, and then some sporadic areas down on Route 60.
I think the reason that I asked you to show that is when I looked at the surveys that were done specifically for the Newport News and Hampton area, one of the things that struck me is that it's along a corridor, the 60 corridor, and of course strip malls that have evolved over the years, and of course the cheap rental piece of it, you see the shops pop up along that area. And so when I thought about what James City County would look like in 30 years, more than likely it'll happen along that 60 corridor that you see across here. And you can see evidence of that already in terms of strip malls that have turned over or being used for nail shops or whatever. And so I think the idea of putting the restriction for an SUP on these areas in this corridor makes sense for the future of the county as we progress and get more turnover in the shops and things of that. Thank you. One last point that I didn't share with everybody, but I was concerned about what York County actually looked at, which you can't quite see on this map because it's in a different area. But it ends up, they have the same SUP kind of requirement. And the piece that always struck me is if you're familiar with Lightfoot Road and the Wawa and all the traffic that's ended up there from the Kmart and all the rest of it, that whole area over there comes underneath the SUP, as well as the Moortown Road where we've seen the U-Crops and that Big Lots and all that turn over for different shops. So they have the same restrictions. And part of that was when we did the vape shop pieces, kids from the high school would go over to York County for it. So anyhow, I'm glad to see that the partnership is between the counties because frankly, if you're in James City County, going from York and Williamsburg, it all kind of amalgamates across there. So seeing like SUP requirements on that made sense to me. Thank you, Christie.
Any other questions of Ms. Parrish? Any disclosures? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Do you have anything to add, Ms. Parrish? Nope. Any further questions? Moving right along?
I'm sorry, could I ask a question to Ms.
Of course.
Parrish, since she's still at the podium? Sorry, I thought that got a little before I could frame what I was trying to put together in my head. Tonight, anyway, we're looking at the sexually oriented businesses. But a question, at least, that had just come up to me from people in my district, which is Berkeley District, has dealt more with what some see as a real, depends who you're talking to, explosion of vape stores, for instance. And so I think it's important to get ordinances like this out front because it's not uncommon for those businesses, just like you'll see two hardware stores together, but to find the same sorts of industry co-locate. And so I find this, to be something that it's time to get on the books.
And I think it's very timely. I believe that there was an inquiry in the neighboring jurisdiction, and since they did not identify it within their ordinance, it was classified as retail. Though that business did not go in, it did spur some conversation in that locality of wanting to define it and regulate it better to ensure, where they went and so forth. So I know our board paid attention to that, and which is why they did the initiating resolution, to get in front rather than us being behind like the vape shops. Because the vape shops now require that special use permit. So the ones that are existing are non-conforming. So once they move out and 2 years pass, they cannot reopen in that particular location. And any new ones coming in at a different location would require a special use permit. So yeah, they're no longer by right.
That'll help me to study and to answer folks who call me when they see me.
So yes, any new ones would require a legislative act.
Ordinances like this across the country, I think, use age 18 as a arbiter from adult to child. And as I understand it, there's a case in the Supreme Court right now that may erase that limitation, in which case, kids of all ages could go into shops like this, and that's no fun. So I think you're great to get on top of this. Thank you very much. We don't have any speaker cards. Would anybody like to address the commission on this subject? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, open it for discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend approval of ordinance 25-001, amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding sexual-oriented businesses. And I don't think there's any conditions.
Thank you. Ms. Stennis, please call the roll.
Mr. Polster,
Aye.
Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
Mr. Everson,
Aye.
Mr. May,
Aye.
Dr. Allman,
Aye.
Dr. Haskins, Mr. Haldeman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you. No planning commission considerations. Planning director's report.
You may have noticed the addition of information with respect to special event permit applications, which is on the second page. That will be a new feature, or actually it's an old feature as I understand. It used to previously be in the report and is being brought back. This report actually goes to a number of different parties, not just the Planning Commission, and there was some interest in bringing that information back. So if you have any questions about that, I will try to answer them, but I don't necessarily personally deal with this, and actually comes through Beth. But if you need more information, you can contact Beth, or I'd be happy to pass along any information I have.
So is it just FYI?
FYI.
That's right.
Yep.
Thank you. Next under planning director is zoning ordinance reorganization.
Well, that's pulling up.
Welcome
I have-
back.
Thank you. I know it's been a long time. I've been with the county for close to 32 years, and of that 32 years, at least close to 27, I've been in planning and zoning. So what I'm about ready to at least give you an update on is kind of near and dear to my heart. But we are finally going forward with reorganizing the zoning ordinance. So just a little bit of history of that. The first zoning ordinance was approved on March 1st, 1969, and the basic organization of that ordinance has been the same. The zoning ordinance is considered a living document that changes to reflect the vision of the community. The ordinance has grown considerably over the years through countless amendments for additional land uses, definitions, special overlay districts, and more. The most comprehensive, or I guess the most recent comprehensive updates occurred in 1985, 1999, and 2012. However, many of those updates were done piecemeal, making it difficult to catch inconsistencies of varying types throughout all the ordinance section. And I just kind of gave you what the purpose and the chapter of the map was. So organization, some of the things that we have found, and this is just a small sample of in the ordinance, is, we now have grocery store in one district and we have a retail food store in another district. There's no difference. Recreation facility, commercial community versus community recreation facility, public or private. We have those inconsistencies. We have home occupations that were omitted in R3, which they should be in. Rest home versus nursing home, combined similar land uses, making them difficult to find. And then people are a lot of times unaware of that 2411, which requires a special use permit in certain instances. And sometimes staff, newer staff, doesn't realize that. And it's very easy to come across. So as we go through the reorganization, you may see a contract that's going to the board next week that we will be working with a consultant to do with this endeavor. So the reorganization benefits a comprehensive review of references to ensure accuracy, match terms with like terms, create a table to allow our user to look at a table versus having to go to R1 and look at all the uses, and LB and look at all the uses. Adding more images and graphics, and explore different viewing options for easily to find answers and inquiries such as setbacks and height limitation. Additionally, the zoning ordinance is accompanied by a zoning map. The last official map was adopted in 1986. So everything that has been an amendment since 1986, it just goes on and on and on and on. Each approved rezoning application since that time is an amendment to that map. A byproduct, hopefully, with this process could include a review of the existing zones to ensure they are correctly mapped and include symbol of proffers on applicable land, remove the underlining zoning on public streets, and possible adoption of a digital map. So here's just a couple of examples that we were given. This was from Savannah, but you can certainly drop the category down for commercial and restaurants, and it populates where everything is permitted or specially permitted. Also, you can add links to certain divisions or articles that are reflective in that. Here's another type. Again, this is not 100%, but it's another type of a sheet that will list them all alphabetical uses and then show them where they're permitted or specially permitted in the zoning district. And then some possibilities with some map. Actually, I have seen one where you've been able to, you can click on your property and it'll pop up and it'll show the setbacks. And it'll give you hyperlinks to the uses and those kind of interactive. So people, it's kind of at their touch and be a little bit more transparent with all the documents. So anyways, there will be no substantial changes. This is strictly a reorganization, fixing some inconsistencies through it, and then hopefully provide a digital and interactive component to it. So we wanted you to be aware of it as it's going to the board for the contract, and we look forward to working with that and present that as we go along. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions?
Sure.
When we did the comp plan the last time, the county used the HRPDC's TAZ, T-A-Z zones. And in looking at that, as I recall, they ended up standardizing the land use categories across the different jurisdictions because there were differences in those definitions. Are you going to try to make sure that we're talking about apples and apples again?
With the land uses itself, because I think they're grouped more category
Right.
wise, we'll have to look at that. I know that that was used for transportation purposes, and I know we had to kind of go in there and mix and match, but I'll certainly put that on the list if that's something that we can do, or if we need to be a little bit more broader in our categorizations.
The reason that I think it's significant is that besides the transportation pieces of it, is it also talks about the demographic growths within those zones. And so when you take a look at that, you can see where the growth in the county is and how it's projected out compared to 215, 240, or 250. And I think the different land use categories, they make the same assumptions on the vacant properties in terms of where the growth is going to be. And so I think if you can standardize across that would make sense. The second one that I had is I've been trying since the last comp plan to get Paul and planning staff to relook at the stockage rate for horses on A1 land for it. And of course, I think this is an opportunity to clean up some of those inconsistencies that you talked about. Is it possible that we can do that?
I will say that the stocking rates would have to be an initiative from the board or from the planning commission to initiate. It will not be included in this process because we don't really consider it an inconsistency at this point, because we're just trying to fix the mistakes that we know of to make sure it's cleaner and easier for the public to find. That stocking rate would be a different initiative. So I can't,
I understand,
say
I've
that
tried to
it would be
do
through
that,
that
to
process.
initiate that. And I was hoping that I could sneak it in
but I
another
will make
way.
sure others know that that's
Yeah.
still on your list.
Okay, and then the last one is when we're looking at the Marston's property, which is outside of the PSA, it's R1. But when you look at, there are only 2 other properties outside of the PSA that are R1, and they're already settled. So do you look at the R1 as an inconsistency? No.
We're
So-
just going to take everything that has been approved from 1986
And just
along
keep it
with
the way
all
it
the
is.
maps, and we keep going forward.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? I had one. Actually, I had 2. One of them was the R1 issue. I wanted to ask you about that too. I expected that answer, but I'm not happy with it. Density bonus points. I've made this point a number of times. I don't think they any longer reflect economic reality. The price of land and housing around here has gone up exponentially in the last 5 years and even before that. And so we're giving a density point for something that we really need, like affordable housing or leads, energy development and so forth. But the relative value of that has changed significantly over the years. Would you look at something like that to reevaluate them?
Not during this process. So since this, we have told the board and so forth, there will be no substantial changes at all through this. It's just truly a reorganization. And any little small tweaks that we have, we'll certainly present those out. But that goes a little bit beyond what this project is.
Everson?
When do you expect this to be done?
We are hoping within the next year.
Oh,
I'm optimistic. So there's a lot of work with this. I will even say that hopefully we can link all of our proffers and special use permit documents to those parcels. So people don't have to call the planning department to say, can I get a copy of that special use permit? Our E-code may go on to a different platform, instead of Municode. So it's going to be user-friendly in and out. So there's a lot of bells and whistles that I hope that we can accomplish in the next year to really be transparent to those that are looking for property. So have I told you I'm excited? I truly am, because I've been working with the same ordinance for a really long time. I know how to use it, but somebody coming in, like Susan, has to get used to how it's set up. And everybody has their ordinance differently. So I think this is going to be a big benefit to the county and its citizens.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Planning Commission discussion and requests. Board of Supervisors coverage for June 10th is yours truly. The Policy Committee will meet on June 12th at 3 p.m. The Development Review Committee meeting will meet on June 18th at 4 p.m. Anything else for the good of the cause? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.